You're now preparing for the Olympic Games. It's the last part of your preparation and you are about to board the flight to Tokyo. It's very important you think about jet lag and you think about travel fatigue and how to prepare in the last moments before your participation in the Olympic Games. So it's very important that you recognize two aspects that you need to think about planning your next phase. So in order to reach Tokyo, you will have to take a flight, and depending on where you're flying from, it could be a long flight or it could be a short flight. But most of all, the other thing you need to think about is the time zone difference that you will be crossing from your country to Japan for the Tokyo Olympics. So traveling brings two problems to consider. One is the travel fatigue, which might affect your body in different ways. You might have headaches, you might have very stiff muscles after a long flight, you might be slightly dehydrated after a long flight. And so you need to take this into account when you land and what sort of training activities you do in the first few days after you reach the new country. Jet lag has got more to do with your biological clock. So if you are traveling from a country where you have a big time zone difference, it might take a few days for your body to adjust to the new time zone. And some of the performance implications are very different. Jet lag can affect your body in different ways. It's a very individual how people respond to jet lag, but some of the common things that we know from research and practical experience in the field with athletes is that some athletes might have reduced performance in the first few days when they land in a new time zone. So if you are traveling from abroad to Japan and you are crossing different time zones, it might take you a few days to adapt to the new time zone. So it's very important that in the first few days you try to establish a good sleep routine, going to sleep at the right time and waking up at the right time. So avoiding oversleeping and avoiding going to sleep too late or too early. It's very important you adjust your nutrition, and the most important thing to do is to adjust your training. What you don't want to do in the first few days after you land in a new time zone, especially if you cross different time zones, is to do high intensity training, high speed movements, very complicated movements, things that might put you at risk of an injury. Because jet lag affects different aspects of your performance. It might affect your coordination, it will affect your physiology, it might affect how you digest foods, it will affect your cognitive abilities. And it's very different, so there is no genetic recommendation apart from the obvious one to be very careful in the first few days of landing in Japan and make sure that you are progressively conducting the last few training activities to avoid injuries and get prepared for competition. Travel fatigue is a very important aspect to consider. If you're traveling for many hours to reach Japan, you might want to do some activities to reduce the chance of travel fatigue. So you want to move on the flight, do some exercises, in particular to avoid blood flow going to the lower limbs. So you might want to do some exercises for your calves, walk around the plane, having food, drinking, making sure you are fully hydrated on the flight, maintain your hygiene measures to reduce the chance of catching a flu or a cold. And also you might want to use compression garments to help you with reducing the instances of blood flow in your lower legs. So preparation is key. You worked very hard to reach the Olympic Games. You worked years to reach the pinnacle of your career to compete at the Olympic Games. So it's very important that you pay attention to these few little tips to prepare yourself in the best possible conditions to perform at the Games.